Excuse me, ma'am, can you get me a pair of shoes?
Okay, stay right here. I will be back.
Do you like it?
Nah.
Yes.
Chairman Kim Seo-joon had been thinking about this for months. He needed to see the real face again. On a Friday night, the chairman sat across from his son at the dinner table and explained what he wanted to do the next morning. Joon listened without interrupting. When his father finished, the boy was quiet for a moment. Then he asked only one question. What if nobody helps? His father looked at him. Then we learn something true. Joon nodded, thought for another second, then picked up his fork and continued eating. The chairman watched his son and felt, for the first time in a long time, that he had made a correct decision. His son Joon was 8 years old, small for his age, and possessed of the specific gravity that some children carry, the kind that makes adults feel, without understanding why, that they are being evaluated. Joon had his father's eyes, dark, still, patient, but his mother's warmth underneath them. She had died 4 years ago, quietly, without enough warning, and Joon had absorbed her absence the way children do, not all at once, but slowly, permanently, in the way it shaped what he noticed about the world around him. Hongdae on a Saturday morning is not the same city as Hongdae on a weekday. The weekday version is functional commuters, deliveries, the ordinary machinery of Seoul in motion. The Saturday version is alive in a different way. Young people in clothes they chose carefully, music leaking from store entrances, street food vendors setting up their stalls with the practiced ease of people who have done this exact thing 500 times. It smells like coffee and fried dough and the particular energy of a city that has decided to enjoy itself. The chairman arrived early, alone. He had left the driver 2 blocks away with instructions to wait. He had left his phone in his coat pocket, on silent. He bought a coffee from a street cart, found a position against the wall of a building across from the main pedestrian flow, and stood still. No bodyguards, no assistant, no one to manage the next 30 seconds for him. Just a man in a dark coat watching a crowd, with a coffee he had already forgotten about cooling in his hand. At 8:47 in the morning, a small figure in a navy jacket and gray trousers emerged from the side street where the chairman's other car was parked, worn-out beige slippers on his feet, nothing in his hands. Joon walked into the crowd without looking back. The first person was a young man in his mid-20s, earphones in, scrolling his phone with the absent-minded fluency of someone who has been doing it since childhood. Joon stepped in front of him and said, in his clearest voice, the voice his teachers had praised, "Excuse me, could you help me get a pair of shoes? I can't afford one." The man's eyes flickered down, up. He kept walking. "Ask your parents." Joon turned and found the next person. Before we continue, if stories like this move you, tap like and subscribe. You will not want to miss what comes next. A couple, matching outfits, mid-conversation about something that made them both smile. They stopped when Joon appeared in front of them. He repeated his question. The man looked at the woman. The woman looked at Joon's feet. Then the man laughed not cruelly, just the reflexive laugh of someone who has decided the situation is not real, and they moved around him. "You're joking, right?" They were already gone before Joon answered. He did not answer. He turned and found the next person, a shop owner arranging a display outside his store. He did not wait for Joon to finish the sentence. He pointed away from the entrance. "Don't stand in front of my store. Move along." Joon moved along. The fourth person slowed down. A woman in her 30s who actually looked at him, actually paused, actually let her eyes travel to his worn slippers and back to his face. For a moment, a genuine moment, that the chairman across the street noticed she seemed to consider it. Then she shook her head. "I'm sorry." She said it like she meant it, and then she walked away anyway. Joon watched her go, then turned and found the next person, and the next, and the next. By the 7th rejection, the chairman had stopped reacting to each one. He had gone still in the way that people go still when they are learning something they did not fully expect to learn. Not surprised. Recalibrating. Seoul moved around his son like water around a stone. Busy, indifferent, efficient, in the specific way that cities are efficient. No cruelty intended, no kindness offered. just the ordinary forward motion of thousands of people who had somewhere to be. Joon kept walking, kept asking. His posture did not change. His voice did not shrink. If he was hurt by it, he did not show it in any way that the crowd could see. Only his father, watching from across the street with the specific attention of a man who knew his son's face better than any face in the world, could see the small adjustment that happened after the 8th rejection. The way Joon's shoulders settled slightly lower. The way his next breath was a half-second longer than it needed to be. 8 years old. And already learning that the world does not stop for you. Then Joon stopped again. And everything changed. She was coming from the opposite direction, moving against the main flow of the crowd. Dark trousers, a plain white top, a small brown crossbody bag that sat against her hip with the comfort of something carried every day. Natural hair in a low bun. The kind of tiredness in her face that belongs specifically to a Friday payday, the tiredness of a week fully spent, held up now only by the fact that the number in her envelope meant the next week could be managed. Her name was Amara. She was 28 years old. She had been in Seoul for 11 months, working as an administrative coordinator at a mid-sized import company 3 blocks from here. She sent money home to Lagos every month, her mother's medication, her younger sister's school fees. She kept what was left. She counted it carefully. She had learned to count carefully, at an age when most children were still being surprised by money. None of this was visible on her face. What was visible was simply a woman walking home after work, carrying a paycheck, thinking about everything it needed to cover. Joon stepped in front of her. "Excuse me, could you help me get a pair of shoes? I can't afford one." She stopped. Not the polite stop of someone preparing to decline. Not the uncomfortable stop of someone trying to calculate an exit. She stopped the way people stop when something lands differently than they expected it to. She looked at his feet, at the worn slippers, the kind that had held on past the point where they should have been replaced. Then she looked at his face, at his eyes, at the patience in them that was too old for his age. Something moved across her face. Not pity, something older than pity, and less comfortable. Recognition. "I just got paid today," she said. Her voice was level, honest without performance. "I have rent, bills I already promised people, things I planned before this morning." Joon nodded. He had heard different versions of this opening. He knew what usually came after it. "And it may not be enough after," she added. Even with today's pay, she was still standing there. Across the street, the chairman's coffee had gone entirely cold. He had not moved in 4 minutes. He was watching this woman the way he had not watched anyone all morning, not with the detached observation of an experiment being conducted, but with the focused attention of a man who has just seen something he did not put in the plan. She hadn't walked away. She was still standing in front of his son, not saying yes, not saying no, just standing there with the arithmetic of her month running visibly behind her eyes. Then she looked at Joon one more time, at his feet, at his face. "Wait here," she said. And she walked into the crowd. Joon stood still. He had learned not to chase. He put his hands into his jacket pockets and waited. Around him, Hongdae continued its Saturday. Nobody stopped to ask why a small boy was standing alone on the pavement. Nobody looked twice. Across the street, the chairman did not move, did not check his phone, did not speak to anyone. He watched the direction she had gone, and he waited too. She walked fast, the kind of fast that is not confidence, it is momentum, the kind you build when you are moving before the second thoughts arrive. She found the shoe store 2 buildings down, small, clean, nothing expensive. She pushed the door open and went straight to the children's section without browsing. She knew what she was looking for because she had already decided what she could spend before she walked through the door. That calculation had happened on the pavement in approximately 40 seconds. Rent, mother's medication, sister's fees, transport for the week, food, what was left. Whether what was left was enough for a pair of children's shoes and still leave her functional for the next 14 days. It was not comfortably enough. It was barely enough. It was the kind of enough that requires you to not think too hard about it while you are doing it. She pulled out her paycheck envelope, opened it in the aisle, counted once her fingers moving with the practiced efficiency of someone who had been doing their own accounting since they were a teenager, stopped, exhaled through her nose. Her fingers pressed flat against the notes for a moment, the way hands do when they are holding something they are about to release. "Something for a boy," she told the shop assistant, "about this tall." She held her hand at Joon's approximate height. "Something decent." She chose carefully, not the cheapest pair on the shelf. The cheapest pair had the look of something that would not survive a month of actual use. Not the best, that was not what she had. She found a pair in the middle. Clean white canvas, simple sole, the kind of shoe that said nothing except, "This child is taken care of. This child matters to someone." When the money left her hand, there was a pause in her body. Brief, almost invisible. The pause of a decision already made, meeting the reality of its cost. Then she took the bag, said thank you, and walked back out into the Saturday morning. Joon was where she had left him. Exactly, he had not moved a centimeter. When she appeared through the crowd, he saw her immediately. His face did not do what most children's faces do. It did not break open with relief or excitement. It went very still, the way his face went still when something mattered more than he had words for. She slowed when she reached him. The urgency that had been carrying her forward dropped away. She looked at him for a moment. Then she said, quietly, "Come with me." He followed her into the store, without a word. She pointed to the low bench near the entrance. "Sit." He sat. She set the bag down, reached inside, took out the box. Then she knelt in front of him. One knee, on the floor of a shoe store in Hongdae on a Saturday morning, with her paycheck lighter than she had planned, and her rent due in 11 days. She removed his slippers, carefully, one hand supporting his heel, the other lifting the slipper away. No comment about their condition. No face about the way the sole had worn down on the left one more than the right, which meant he walked slightly favoring one side. She simply removed them and set them aside. Then she took the new shoes out of the box, placed the right one on his foot first, adjusted the fastening, then the left. She spent an extra moment on the left adjusting the strap, pressing the back to make sure the heel was seated correctly, pressing the toe to check the fit. Her hands were completely steady. Her eyes were somewhere else. Not distant in a sad way, in the way of a person who has made a decision and is fully committed to it but has not stopped being aware of what it cost. "Stand up," she said. "Walk a few steps." Joon stood, walked to the end of the bench and back, looked down at his feet. She watched him walk, and something in her face softened for the first time since she had stopped on the pavement. "Good?" she asked. "Good," he said. She stood up, brushed her knee, picked up her bag, left the old slippers in the store they had given everything they had to give. "Take care of them," she said. Joon looked up at her. His eyes held on her face for a moment with that too old patience. "Thank you." She nodded once, then walked out. No look back. No waiting. No standing at the door to see his reaction. She had done what she came back to do, and she returned herself to her Saturday. The door closed behind her. Joon stood in the entrance of the shoe store in his new shoes and looked at the door for a long moment. Then he looked down at his feet. Then back at the door. He had met 11 people today. 10 of them had kept walking. One had knelt on the floor of a shoe store on her payday and adjusted the strap twice. He would not forget her face. He already knew this. Some faces you know you will remember before you have finished looking at them. Across the street, Chairman Kim Seo-joon had not moved from his position against the wall. His coffee was cold. His phone had buzzed 4 times. He had not looked at it. He had watched a woman he had never seen before spend money she had carefully counted, and spend it anyway. He had watched her kneel. He had watched her adjust the strap twice. He had watched her walk away, without looking back. He turned to the man who had been standing quietly to his left, his most trusted assistant, the only other person who knew about today, and said 2 words. "Follow her." His voice was calm. It was always calm. But the assistant had worked with this man for 9 years, and he heard the difference between his employer's ordinary calm and the calm that meant something had shifted in a direction that would have consequences. This was the second kind. "Find out where she lives," the chairman added. "Her name, where she works, Nothing invasive, just enough. He looked at his son, who had emerged from the store and was now standing on the pavement looking down at his new shoes with an expression the chairman recognized. Joon looked up, found his father's eyes across the street, and smiled, just slightly. The way he smiled when something had gone exactly as he believed it would. The report came back the same evening. Amara, 28, Nigerian, Administrative Coordinator at Hana Import Group, 3 years in the role, good standing, 11 months in Seoul, on a work visa. Apartment in Mapo-gu, a modest building, clean neighborhood, the kind of address that tells you a person is living carefully within their means without struggling against them. No social media presence to speak of. A private Instagram with 41 followers, mostly photographs of food, and one recurring image of a woman who was clearly her mother, taken through a phone screen during video calls. The kind of social media presence that belongs to someone who uses the internet for connection rather than performance. The chairman read the report at his desk, then read it again, then set it down and sat with it for a few minutes. His assistant waited. "Does she know anyone followed her?" the chairman asked. "No, sir." "Good." He folded the report. "That's all." His assistant left. The chairman sat alone in his office on the 42nd floor, with Seoul spread out beneath him in the dark, and thought about a woman counting money in a shoe store aisle. Joon asked about her at breakfast on Sunday, not in the way children ask about things that caught their attention briefly, in the way he asked about things he had decided mattered. "Did you find out who she was?" The chairman looked at his son over his coffee. "Yes." "Is she okay?" "She's fine." Joon nodded, ate a spoonful of rice, then, "Can I meet her again?" The chairman set his cup down. "Why?" Joon thought about this seriously, the way he thought about all serious questions. "Because she knelt down," he said finally. "Most people don't do that." The chairman was quiet for a moment. "No," he said, "most people don't." He looked at his son's new shoes, sitting by the door where Joon had placed them carefully the night before, not kicked off, placed. The way you treat something that costs someone something to give you. "We'll go see her," the chairman said, "but not yet." 3 days passed. The chairman's man filed 2 more brief reports. Monday, she went to work, arrived 8 minutes early, left 12 minutes after her shift ended, stopped at the supermarket on the way home, bought rice, vegetables, eggs, a small quantity of meat, did not buy anything unnecessary. Tuesday, same pattern, work, supermarket, home. In the evening, she made a video call her mother's face on the phone screen, their voices not audible, but the body language clear. Amara laughed twice. Her mother talked for most of it. "She hasn't changed anything," the assistant reported. "The money you gave, there's no sign of it yet." The chairman nodded slowly. "What did she spend first?" A pause. The assistant checked his notes. Rent was transferred the morning after. Then a pharmacy transaction looks like a prescription order. Then nothing unusual. The chairman said nothing for a long moment. Rent first, then her mother's medication, then back to ordinary life. No new clothes, no restaurant, no visible change in how she moved through her week. He had given a significant amount of money to a woman who had spent her payday on his son's shoes, and she had used it to pay her rent and her mother's medication, and then continued her life exactly as before. He had met presidents who handled unexpected money less gracefully. "That's all," he told his assistant. "No more reports. We go see her ourselves." She was sitting at her kitchen table on a Wednesday evening with her bills in front of her and a pen in her hand when the knock came. She frowned at the door. She was not expecting anyone. Her neighbor sometimes knocked on Tuesdays to return borrowed soy sauce, but it was Wednesday and she had not lent anything recently. The second knock. She put the pen down, pushed back her chair, and walked to the door. She opened it, and every thought she had been carrying the rent column, the medication calculation, the question of whether she could afford new work shoes before the month turned, every single thought dropped out of her head at once. The boy was standing there, different clothes, clean, a proper jacket this time, and on his feet, not her shoes, better ones, newer, but the face was the same. Those eyes that were too patient for 8 years old, that slight smile that knew something. Behind him, 2 men in dark suits. A car at the curb that cost more than her annual salary. Her eyes moved from the suits to the car, to the boy's face. trying to make a connection her brain was not yet authorizing. The boy stepped slightly forward. "Look closely," he said. She leaned in, scanned his face. And then it arrived, not gradually, but all at once, the way recognition always arrives when it has been building underneath, like a wave that had been gathering since Saturday morning finally reaching the shore. Her eyes went wide. You. "Yes," he said, smiling wider. "It's me." She stepped back. One hand went to the doorframe. Not fear, the physical response of a mind that is processing too much at once and needs the wall to be real. Then another figure stepped forward from behind the suited men, unhurried, completely certain of the space he occupied. The chairman, dark coat, white shirt, the same face she had not known she had been watched by on Saturday, sharp, still, eyes that found her face and held it with the specific attention of someone who has already thought carefully about this moment. "My son walked through Hongdae on Saturday," he said. His voice was measured, not loud, the kind of voice that does not need volume. He asked 11 people for help. He paused. You were the only one who came back. Silence filled the doorway. The ordinary sounds of the building, a television somewhere, a door closing one floor up, continued as though nothing unusual was happening. She tried to speak. Her mouth opened and then closed, because she was remembering. The envelope in the aisle, the counting, the pause before the money left her hand, the way she had walked back out into the crowd moving fast so the second thoughts would not catch up. "I almost didn't," she said. He nodded once. "I know. My son told me what you said to him before you left." Joon stepped forward. "You told me about your bills, about your rent. You told me it might not be enough." He looked up at her steadily. "And then you came back anyway." Her throat tightened. She looked at the boy, at the certainty in his face, at the way he was looking at her like he had already decided she was someone worth knowing before he had knocked on her door. "I didn't do it for anything," she said. Her voice came out quieter than she intended. "I know," the chairman said. "That's the only reason we're standing here." She stepped aside. "Let them in." The two suited men stayed in the corridor. Only the father and son entered. The apartment was small. Everything in its place. The bills still spread on the table, the pen resting where she had put it down. She moved toward the table self-consciously and began to stack the papers. "You don't have to do that," the chairman said. She paused, then set the stack down without hiding it. "I had plans for that paycheck," she said. She was not explaining herself. She was being honest because it felt dishonest not to be. "Everything I spent had somewhere it was supposed to go." "I know," he said. "The rent, my mother's prescription, my sister's." "I know," he said again, not impatiently, with the quiet of a man who has read a report and found it insufficient and is now sitting across from the real thing. She stopped, looked at him. Something in the way he said it made her understand that he had looked into her before coming here. She decided not to feel violated by this. She decided to feel seen instead. Those were different things, and she chose the one that was true. He reached into his coat, produced an envelope, placed it on the table beside her stacked bills. She looked at it, did not pick it up immediately. "I'm not accepting charity," she said, quickly, almost instinctively, the response of someone who had learned early that gratitude and debt were sometimes the same thing in different clothes. "It's not charity," Joon said. She looked at him. "It's a return," he said, "for what you gave." She picked up the envelope, opened it. Her hand went still. The number was not a reward. It was not a gesture. It was the kind of number that restructures the next sentence of a person's life. Rent for a year. Her mother's medication for longer than that. Her sister's school fees, and then some. The broken phone replaced. The work shoes she had been putting off. All of it. And then an amount left over that had no emergency attached to it, which was, for Amara, a feeling so unfamiliar it almost did not compute. "This is too much," she said. "It is exactly what your choice was worth," the chairman replied. She looked up at him. Her eyes were not wet. She was not a woman who cried in front of strangers, even strangers who had just handed her a year of breathing room. But something in her face had opened, that had not been open when she answered the door. "I didn't do it to be worth something," she said. "I know," he said for the third time. "That's what makes it worth everything." Joon had settled himself into the chair at her table, the one with her bills on it, and was looking around her apartment with the quiet curiosity of a child who finds small spaces more interesting than large ones. He noticed the photograph on the wall. A woman laughing, caught mid-sentence, warm and open-faced. "Your mother?" he asked. Amara glanced at the photograph. "Yes. She looks like she's funny," Joon said. Something softened in Amara's face so completely and so quickly that the chairman caught it and had to look away for a moment, because it was not a performance. It was not self-conscious. It was just what happened to her face when someone said the right thing about her mother. "She is," Amara said, endlessly. Joon nodded, satisfied, and went back to looking at the apartment. The chairman was still looking at the photograph. "Can I come back?" Joon asked, still looking at the apartment, as though the question were casual. Amara looked at him, then at his father. The chairman met her eyes. "If she agrees," he said. His voice gave nothing away. It rarely did. She looked at Joon, at the shoes she had bought now sitting somewhere in a room she had never seen, replaced by better ones. She thought about the strap she had adjusted twice, about the way he had said thank you, not quickly, not reflexively, but after a pause that meant it. "Yes," she said. Joon's face did the thing. The slight, certain smile of a child who has confirmed something he already believed to be true. His father said nothing, but something changed in his eyes. The quality of attention shifted from observation to something that did not have a clean corporate word for it. He recognized his son's instinct because it was the same as his own. Joon had found someone. The question the chairman had not yet answered was what, exactly, Joon had found her for. He stood, turned toward the door, paused. "You didn't just pass a test," he said without looking back. "You changed something." Then he left. Joon followed. The door closed. Amara stood alone in her apartment with an envelope in her hand and bills on her table and a photograph of her mother on the wall. She sat down slowly, opened the envelope again, read the number again. Then she picked up her pen, pulled the bills toward her, and for the first time in 11 months of carefully managing the distance between what she earned and what was needed, she started crossing things off. Not with relief, with disbelief. The specific kind that arrives when the world gives back more than you prepared yourself to lose. Joon came back 2 days later. No car at the curb this time. No suited men in the corridor. He knocked on her door at 4:37 in the afternoon with his school bag on his back and his new shoes on his feet and the particular energy of a child who had been thinking about this visit since the last one ended. Amara opened the door, looked at him, then looked past him into the corridor. "Your father?" she asked. "He knows I'm here," Joon said. "His driver brought me." She processed this for a moment, then stepped aside. "Come in." He came in like he already knew the place. Not intrusively carefully. He took off his shoes at the door without being asked, which in Korea was instinct, but which she noticed anyway because not everyone remembered. He sat at her kitchen table, the same chair, and unzipped his school bag. "Homework?" she asked. "Mathematics," he said, in the tone of someone reporting a chronic condition. She almost smiled. "Do you need help?" He looked up at her. "Are you good at mathematics?" "I manage budgets for a living," she said. He considered this as adequate qualification. Then yes. She made 2 cups of tea without asking if he wanted any. Set one in front of him. He drank it without comment. She sat across from him with her own work, a report she had been putting off, and they worked in the same silence for 40 minutes. It was the most comfortable 40 minutes her apartment had held in 11 months. He came back the following Tuesday. Then the Friday after that. Each time, same knock, same chair, same school bag, sometimes homework. Sometimes he just sat and read while she worked. Once he asked her what jollof rice was and she told him, and he said he wanted to try it, and she said she would make it sometime, and he said, "When is sometime?" And she said, "When I have the ingredients." And he said, "I could bring them," and she said, "You don't know what's in it." And he said, "You could write a list." and she looked at him across the table and thought, this child negotiates like his father. She did not say this out loud. She wrote the list. He brought the ingredients the following week in a reusable bag from a grocery store that cost more than her crossbody bag. She made the rice. He ate 2 bowls. He said it was better than anything he had eaten in a month. She said that was not possible. He said he was not exaggerating. She said he was definitely exaggerating. He said ask his father. She said his father had not tasted it. He said they could fix that. She looked at him over her 3rd bowl of rice he had not touched. You're doing this on purpose, she said. He looked up, the picture of innocence. Doing what? She let it go, but she thought about it after he left. The chairman's reports had stopped. He had told his assistant to stand down after the first week. What replaced them were Joon's accounts. Every evening after his visits, over dinner or over whatever hour Joon presented himself to his father's office, the boy delivered his own version of a report. She counts things, Joon said one evening. Whenever she's thinking, she counts. Her fingers move. The chairman looked up from his papers. What does she count? I don't know. Maybe just keeping track. Joon ate a spoonful of soup. She's careful. Not scared careful. Just careful. The chairman said nothing. She called her mother while I was there today. Joon continued. She went to the other room, but I could hear her laughing. He paused. She laughs differently on the phone than in the room. How so? The chairman asked. Bigger, Joon said. Like she saves the real laugh for home. The chairman set his chopsticks down, looked at his son. His son looked back at him with those steady, patient eyes. She made jollof rice, Joon added. You should eat it. Should I? Yes. Joon picked up his chopsticks again. She said she'd make it sometime. I told her you might come. You told her I might come. I said might. Joon examined his soup bowl with great interest. That's not a promise. The chairman looked at his son for a long moment. His son continued eating with the serenity of someone who has played a hand correctly and is prepared to wait. He came alone. No announcement. No Joon. A Thursday evening, the light going orange over the Mapo rooftops, 9 days after the doorstep. She opened the door, and her face did the thing it apparently always did when he appeared without warning, a half-second of complete blankness while her mind caught up to her eyes. Then it settled into something that was not quite composed, but was trying to be. Joon's not with you, she said. No, he replied. May I come in? She stepped aside. He entered. Looked at the apartment not for the first time, but the first time slowly, without his son providing a reason for his attention to be elsewhere. The photograph of her mother, the small shelf of books above the desk, organized in a way that suggested a system, the window that looked out over a narrow street where a convenience store sign blinked blue. Joon speaks highly of the rice, he said. He told me he mentioned that, she replied. She remained standing near the kitchen entrance, arms loosely crossed. Not hostile, just giving herself distance from the room until she understood what the room was. He said you should try it, she added. I want to be clear that was entirely his suggestion. Something moved across the chairman's face. Not quite a smile. The movement that comes before a smile in a face that has practiced not smiling. May I sit? He asked. Please. He took the chair across from hers, not Joon's chair, the one she usually occupied. He sat with the particular economy of movement that belongs to people who are never uncertain about their bodies in space. She sat across from him. A silence settled. Not uncomfortable. The kind that is testing whether 2 people can share it without one of them rushing to fill it. Neither of them rushed. I want to ask you something, he said. And I want an honest answer. You'll get one, she said. She said it simply, not as a declaration of virtue, as a statement of her default. What were you going to do with your paycheck? Before Saturday. She held his gaze for a moment. Then she told him everything. Rent, the amount, the date it was due, the fact that this month it was 3 days earlier than usual because the building management had changed. Her mother's prescription, the medication name, the cost, the fact that she ordered it every 6 weeks and the last order had depleted her reserve fund and this month's pay was the first chance to rebuild it. Her sister's school fees due at the end of the month, not negotiable. The kind of deadline that sits in your chest for 3 weeks before the date. Her broken phone screen 3 months ignored because every time she had the money to fix it, something more urgent had appeared. She told him all of it, not to explain her hesitation on the pavement, not to justify herself, simply because he had asked honestly, and she saw no reason to answer any other way. He listened without interrupting, without the small affirming sounds people make to show they are tracking. He simply listened with the complete and slightly unnerving attention of a man who had spent 20 years in rooms where every word had consequence. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. "And you still bought the shoes?" he said. She looked at him. He needed them. 3 words. No elaboration. No performance of generosity. He needed them. The chairman had sat across from a great many people in his life, across desks during negotiations that moved hundreds of millions, across tables in rooms where the wrong word could cost jobs, partnerships, years of work. He had learned to hear the space between what people said and what they meant, because that space was usually where the truth lived. This woman had no space. What she said was exactly what she meant, the exact same size, no gap, no performance filling the distance. He had not encountered this in a very long time. "How long have you been in Seoul?" he asked. 11 months. "Do you like it here?" She thought about this honestly. "I like the work. I like that the streets are clean and that the trains run when they say they will. I like that nobody bothers me on my commute." She paused. "I miss things too." "What things?" "My mother's voice without a screen between us. The smell of Lagos in the morning. It's hard to explain to someone who hasn't been there. My sister calling me to complain about her teachers." She looked at the photograph on the wall, the specific noise of home. He followed her gaze to the photograph. The woman mid-laugh, caught in a moment of pure unself-conscious joy. "Your mother doesn't know about Saturday," he said. Not a question, an observation. "No," Amara said. "She would worry if I told her I spent money we didn't have. She doesn't need something new to worry about." "But you told her about Joon's visit, about us coming here." A beat. "How do you know that?" "Joon," he said. "He said you laughed differently on the phone that evening than you do in the room." She looked at him with an expression that was reassessing something. "He notices things," she said. "Yes," the chairman replied. "He gets that from his mother." The sentence landed quietly between them, not as a weight, as a door, briefly open. She did not push through it. She let it stand. "She died 4 years ago," he said. Joon was 4. "I'm sorry," she said. And she meant it with the directness she apparently meant everything. "He doesn't remember enough of her," the chairman said. "But he carries her in the way he looks at people, the way he decides things." He paused. "The way he looked at you on Saturday." Amara was quiet. "He told me you were the only one who knelt down," the chairman said. "He said most people don't do that. They're afraid to," she said. "Kneeling in front of a child in the street feels like making yourself small. But it's the other way. It makes the child real-sized." She paused. He needed his shoes to fit correctly. "You have to be at the right height to do that." The chairman looked at her for a long moment. Then he stood, straightened his coat. "May I come back?" he asked. The question was direct, uncomplicated. The same question his son had asked, with the same absence of disguise. She looked at him. "Joon has a standing invitation," she said carefully. "I'm not asking for Joon," he said. The room held that for a second. "Yes," she said. "You may come back." He nodded once, moved toward the door, then stopped. "The jollof rice," he said. She almost smiled. "I'll add you to the list." He left. The door closed. She sat back down at her table, her bills still there, crossed off now all of them with the pen she had put down when the knock came. She looked at the door, then at the photograph of her mother. Her mother's frozen laugh looked back at her. "Don't," Amara said, to nobody. But she was almost smiling. It was 3 weeks before anyone outside the building took a photograph. Not a journalist, not a hired photographer, just a person with a phone and too much time and a vague sense that the man standing outside an ordinary Mapo apartment building at 7:20 in the evening looked familiar. The photograph was blurry. His face was partially turned, but it was enough for someone to run it through a search and post what they found, and from there the identification took 40 minutes and the spread took less than 4 hours. Chairman Kim Seo-Joon, photographed outside unknown residence. By morning, it had 20,000 shares and a comment section that had already decided everything. She saw it on a colleague's phone at the office. Her colleague was reading comments and had not noticed her standing 2 feet away. Amara looked at the photograph, at the back of his coat, at the building behind him. Her building. She walked to her desk, sat down, opened her work files, started her day. Her hands were completely steady. He called her that evening. "You saw it," he said. "Yes," she said. "I'm sorry. I didn't think—" "You don't need to apologize," she said. "You were standing outside a building. That's not a crime." A pause. "It will get worse before it settles." "Probably," she agreed. "Are you?" "I'm fine," she said. Then, more honestly, "I'm not fine, but I'm not broken. Those are different things." He was quiet for a moment. She had noticed he did this, went quiet, when something landed in a way he was still processing. It was not avoidance, it was the opposite. "What do you need?" he asked. She thought about it. "Nothing tonight. Tonight I'm going to make dinner and call my mother and not read the comments." "Good," he said. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "Nothing tonight," he said. "Tonight I'm going to let it run and see what it becomes. And if it becomes something bad, then I handle it," he said, simply, without drama, the tone of a man who has handled bad things before and found them manageable. She found that she believed him, not because powerful men always fixed things they did not. She had seen enough of the world to know that, but because this particular man had a specific quality of follow-through that she had been observing for 3 weeks. When he said he would do something, there was no space between the saying and the doing, no gap where uncertainty lived. "Good night," she said. "Good night," he said. And then, "Don't read the comments. I told you I wouldn't." "I know. I'm saying it anyway." She almost smiled. "Good night." She did not read the comments. Her mother called before she finished making dinner, and they talked for 40 minutes about everything except what was happening in Seoul because Amara had not told her and did not intend to yet. Her mother asked if she was eating well. She said yes. Her mother said she did not look like she was eating well in the last video call. She said she was eating right now. Her mother said, "What are you making?" She said rice. Her mother said that's not enough protein. She said she had an egg in it. Her mother said 1 egg. She said, "A big egg." Her mother laughed. The real laugh. The full-faced one from the photograph on the wall. And Amara stood in her kitchen in Seoul holding her phone and felt, for a few minutes, entirely home. When she hung up, she sat at her table for a while. The comments she had not read were still there somewhere on the internet. The photograph was still circulating. Whatever this was, whatever it was becoming, was still becoming. But her rent was paid. Her mother's medication was ordered. Her sister's fees were settled. A boy had sat at this table and done his mathematics homework 3 times this week. A man had sat in the chair across from hers and listened to everything she said with the kind of attention that did not perform itself. She picked up her pen, opened her notebook, and wrote her mother a proper letter, the kind she had been meaning to write for 6 months and kept not writing. 3 pages, longhand. Everything she had not said on the calls. She sealed it, put it with her work bag to mail in the morning. Then she went to bed. His mother called him at 6:45 in the morning, which was how he knew it was serious. She never called before 7. "Come for breakfast," she said. It was not a request. He went. Her home was 40 minutes from his, in the kind of traffic that did not happen at 7 in the morning, which meant they arrived at 7:20, and she was already seated at the table with tea and a spread that she had clearly not prepared herself but had arranged herself, which was her version of effort. She looked at him as he sat down, then at Joon, who had come because the chairman had not seen a reason to leave him behind. "Hello, grandmother," Joon said, and sat with his customary self-possession. She looked at her grandson for a moment with an expression that contained both great love and great exasperation, because Joon had always been slightly beyond her management, and she had never fully decided how to feel about that. Go eat in the kitchen, she told him. I'd prefer to stay, he said pleasantly. I'm sure you would, she said. Kitchen. He went, but he left the door open. She did not address this. She looked at her son. The photograph, she said. Yes, he said. People are talking. People talk, he replied. That's not new. She poured his tea. Set the cup in front of him with the deliberate care of a woman who uses small actions to organize her thoughts. Who is she? She asked. Her name is Amara, he said. She's 28. She works in import coordination. She is from Lagos. She has been in Seoul for 11 months. He paused. She bought Joon shoes on her payday when he asked her for help on the street. His mother's expression shifted. The experiment. Yes. She was quiet for a moment. And that's all? A gesture of charity and now? It was not charity, the chairman said. His voice remained level. She counted what she had in a shop aisle. She knew the cost. She did it anyway, and she has not asked for anything since. Not from me, not from anyone. His mother looked at him carefully. You've been seeing her, she said. Yes. How often? Enough. She set her cup down, looked at her hands for a moment, then back at him. She is not from our world, she said. Not cruelly, not dismissively. As a fact, stated plainly, the way she stated all difficult things. She is not from our world, he agreed. She is from a better part of it. That landed. He watched his mother process it, the small tightening around her eyes, the controlled exhale. Seo Joon, she said. The full name, the serious register. I'm not asking for approval, he said. Equally serious, equally level. I'm telling you because you're my mother, and you deserve to know. Not because the decision is yours. From the kitchen, behind the open door, there was the sound of someone eating with perhaps excessive calm. Neither of them acknowledged this. His mother looked at him for a long time, the look of a woman who had built a great deal with her own hands and was trying to assess whether the structure her son was building was sound. Bring her to me, she said finally. I want to see her myself. That's her choice, he said. Not mine. His mother's eyebrows moved fractionally. In her vocabulary, this was a significant reaction. You've already told her she doesn't have to come? I've told her nothing yet, but when I do, I will tell her it is her choice, completely. His mother looked at him. Then, she picked up her tea. She must be remarkable, she said, quietly, to herself more than to him. She bought a child shoes when she could not afford to, he said, and went home and paid her rent and called her mother. That's not remarkable in the way we use that word. It's just correct. It's the correct way to be a person. He paused. I had forgotten what that looks like. His mother did not respond to this, but she did not dismiss it. From the kitchen, the sound of eating continued. He told Amara about his mother on a Friday. Carefully, fully, with the same absence of decoration he applied to everything. She wants to meet you, he said. I told her it is entirely your choice. Amara was quiet for a moment. They were at her table. This had become a place where difficult things were said. This table, as though the ordinariness of it made honesty easier. What does she want to know? Amara asked. Whether you are what she thinks you are, he said. Which is a problem, he said. Or something else. She nodded slowly. And you can't tell her? I've told her what I know, he said. But she's my mother. She needs to see for herself. She always has. Amara looked at the table for a moment. Then, what kind of woman is she? Precise, he said. Observant. She decides quickly, but rarely incorrectly. She will not be unkind. She considers unkindness wasteful, but she will be direct. Good, Amara said simply. I understand direct. He looked at her. Yes, he said. I know. The lunch was at a private restaurant in Gangnam, the kind that has no sign outside and no menu, only what the chef has decided to cook that day. Amara arrived 4 minutes early, which was her habit. The chairman's mother was already there, which was hers. They looked at each other across the table. The older woman had the bearing of someone who had been assessed by strangers her entire life and had decided decades ago that she would be the one doing the assessing. She sat with a stillness that was not relaxation, but precision. Nothing about her posture was accidental. Amara sat. Tea was poured. Neither of them picked it up immediately. "My son tells me you bought my grandson shoes," the older woman said. "Yes," Amara said, "knowing you couldn't quite afford to. Knowing it would make things tight for a few days, yes." "Why?" Amara looked at her. "Because he needed them. And I had the money, not comfortably, but I had it. When those two things are true at the same time, I don't think the question is whether to help. I think the question is whether you're honest about the cost." The older woman was quiet. "Most people who do kind things," Amara continued, "do them when it doesn't cost enough to matter. That's not unkind. It's just not the same thing." "And you think it did cost enough to matter?" the older woman said. "It cost what it cost," Amara said. "I'm not claiming anything special about it." The older woman picked up her tea, drank, set it down. "My son is not a simple man," she said. "I know," Amara replied. "His life is not a simple life. I know that too." "And you're not afraid of complicated things?" Amara looked at her steadily. "I send money home every month from a foreign country on a coordinator's salary while paying Seoul rent and managing my mother's medical bills from 6,000 kilometers away. My life has not been simple for a long time. I am not looking for simple. I am looking for true." The restaurant was quiet. The soft sounds of the kitchen, the distant city. The older woman looked at the young woman across from her. Not with approval. She was not a woman who approved quickly, but with the specific recalibration that happens when you expect one thing and encounter another. "My grandson likes you," she said. "I like him," Amara replied. "He's extraordinary." "He is," the older woman agreed. The first thing they had agreed on. He has always found the people worth finding. A pause. "He found you first," the older woman said. "Before his father. That's not nothing." Amara looked at her. "No," she said. "It's not nothing." The food arrived. They ate. They talked about Lagos, which the older woman had visited once 30 years ago. About Korean food, which Amara had developed genuine opinions about. About the chairman as a boy, which the older woman offered with the careful precision of a woman sharing something valuable and wanting to be certain it was received correctly. They did not become friends at that lunch, but they became something. Two women who had looked at each other clearly and found no reason to pretend. When it ended, the older woman stood, looked at Amara. "The thing my son said," she told her, "about a better part of the world." She paused. "He was right. I don't say that easily." Amara stood. "I know. Thank you." The older woman nodded once, then left. Amara stood alone in the restaurant for a moment, then picked up her bag from the floor where she had put it, thanked the staff, and walked out into the Gangnam afternoon. The article ran on a Tuesday. Not a blurry photograph this time. A full piece. A journalist who had clearly been working it for 2 weeks. Her name, her neighborhood, her company. Her salary bracket implied, not stated, but the implication landed the same way. Her nationality. Her photograph, taken from a distance, outside her office building. Chairman Kim's secret, the foreign woman behind his closed doors. The comment sections filled within the hour. She did not read them. She had made this decision in advance when she understood what was coming, and she kept it. But the comments found their way to her anyway. A colleague who thought they were sharing with concern. A message from a number she did not recognize. A screenshot sent anonymously to her work email. She read none of them past the first line. She went to work. She came home. She made dinner. She did not call him. He found out she had not called when Joon mentioned it. Joon had called her himself, briefly, to check, and had reported back to his father with the particular tone he used when he was delivering information he considered important. "She said she's fine," Joon said. "She sounded like herself." "Did she ask about me?" the chairman asked. Joon looked at him. "No, she asked about me." The chairman absorbed this. "That's better," Joon said. "If she'd asked about you, it would have meant she was worried. Asking about me means she's okay." The chairman looked at his 8-year-old son. "When did you become so perceptive?" he asked. "I've always been perceptive," Joon said. "You just started noticing." He showed up at her office the next morning. No car, no driver. He walked from the nearest subway exit and arrived at 8:53, 3 minutes before she was due at her desk, and stood outside the building entrance with his hands in his coat pockets. She came around the corner and stopped. He looked at her. "You didn't have to do this," she said. "I know," he said. "The article will get worse if there are more photographs." "Probably," he agreed. "So why?" "Because you didn't call," he said. "Not because you were fine. Because you were protecting me from worrying about you." He held her gaze. "That's not how this works." She looked at him for a long moment. The morning moved around them. Colleagues arriving, the ordinary traffic of a workday beginning. "People are looking," she said quietly. "Let them look," he said. "You're not a secret." She exhaled slowly. Something shifted in her face, the thing that happened when she stopped managing her expression and just let it be what it was. "I have to go in," she said. "I have a meeting at 9. "I'll walk you to the door," he said. She looked at him. Then she turned and walked. He walked beside her, to the entrance, to the door. "Thank you," she said. At the door. "Good night," he said, then caught himself. "I meant go. You have a meeting." She looked at him with an expression that was fighting a smile and losing. "Good night," she said, and went inside. He stood outside for a moment, then turned and walked back toward the subway. 3 people photographed him. The images went everywhere by noon. None of them captured his expression, but Joon, who saw them at home on the family tablet that evening, looked at the back of his father's coat, walking away from the building, and said nothing for a long time. Then he said to himself, more than to anyone, "Good." It started as a visit. Joon had asked if he could come on Sunday morning because he wanted to try making breakfast. He had seen a cooking video, he explained, and wanted to practice. She had said yes. He had told his father. His father had said he would drop him off. She had said that was fine. What she had not entirely accounted for was that drop him off and stay had, over the past several weeks, become adjacent possibilities. She opened the door at 9 o'clock. Joon stood there with a reusable bag of groceries and the contained excitement of a child who had been planning something. Behind him, his father. "I'll just stay a moment," the chairman said. He stayed 3 hours. Joon commandeered the kitchen with the focused authority of someone who had watched considerably more cooking videos than was immediately apparent. He had a plan. The plan involved eggs, which he could not crack cleanly, and toast, which he could manage, and the specific Korean breakfast porridge his grandmother made that he had decided to attempt for the first time without warning anyone. Amara supervised from the kitchen doorway with an expression that moved between amusement and genuine concern about the eggs. The chairman had been given a stool at the kitchen counter and a cup of coffee. She had made it, without asking how he took it and made it correctly, which he noted and did not mention, and he was watching his son attempt to separate an egg yolk and failing in ways that were becoming structurally interesting. "You can help him," Amara said. "He didn't ask for help," the chairman replied. "He's about to get shell in everything. He'll learn more from that than from me doing it for him." She looked at him. "That's very principled." "Thank you." It was not entirely a compliment. He almost smiled. "I know." The eggshell made it into the bowl. Joon extracted most of it with the determination of someone who had made a commitment and intended to honor it regardless of structural setbacks. The porridge was started. The toast was managed. The kitchen acquired the specific pleasant disorder of a meal being made by someone who cared more about the result than the process. Amara moved around Joon, making small corrections, the heat on the porridge, the timing on the toast, one hand briefly guiding his stirring arm into the right motion. She did this without fanfare, without the elaborate praise that adults often perform for children, just corrections made plainly, like information. Joon received them the same way, adjusted, continued. The chairman watched this from his stool. His coffee had gone slightly warm. He had not touched it in 12 minutes. He was watching a woman and his son move around a small kitchen together, with the ease of people who had made room for each other in the space, not performing comfort, but genuinely having it. Joon asked her something in a low voice. She answered with a gesture toward the cabinet. He found what he needed and continued. She turned back to the counter. They did not need to narrate the choreography. This was the most domestic thing the chairman had witnessed in 4 years. Not because his own home was cold, it was not, he had made certain of that. Had taken care with every part of Joon's life that he could control. But there was a difference between a home maintained with care and a home that was simply alive. He had been providing the first. This small kitchen on a Sunday morning, with its slightly scorched toast and imperfectly extracted eggshell, and the sound of Joon narrating his porridge, stirring technique to a woman who was listening while cutting fruit, this was the second thing. He sat on his stool and thought, I have been careful for 4 years. I have done everything correctly, and correct is not the same as alive. He looked at his coffee, then at the window, the narrow street outside, the convenience store sign that was off at this hour, the ordinary Sunday morning of a neighborhood that had nothing to do with his world. He felt, sitting in this kitchen, like a person, not a chairman, not a public figure, not a man being assessed or observed or managed. Just a person on a stool in a small kitchen on a Sunday morning, with his son making porridge badly, and a woman who had bought those shoes cutting fruit 3 feet away. Amara glanced at him from the counter, caught him looking at nothing. Are you all right? She asked. Yes, he said. And then, because she deserved the real answer, more than I expected to be, she held his gaze for a second, then turned back to the fruit. Porridge is ready, Joon announced, with audible pride. They ate at the small table, 3 of them around a table that had been built for 2. Joon's porridge was slightly thick and had a faint flavor of burnt at the edge that nobody mentioned. The toast was perfect. The fruit was well cut. They ate and talked about inconsequential things, a film Joon wanted to see, a market Amara had discovered near the river, a question Joon had about whether giraffes slept standing up, which led to a longer conversation than any of them expected. Joon ate 2 bowls of his own porridge. Whether this was genuine appetite or loyalty was unclear and irrelevant. When it was over, Joon offered to wash up. Amara said she would help. The chairman sat at the cleared table and listened to the 2 of them argue companionably about the correct way to stack plates in a drying rack, which apparently had a correct way that they disagreed on. He looked at the photograph of her mother on the wall. The laughing woman, caught mid-sentence. He thought, I want to meet her, not to assess or to present himself or to make any kind of impression. Just to meet the woman who had raised someone who bought a stranger's child shoes on payday and went home and paid her rent and called her mother and did not change a single thing about how she moved through the world? He would ask Amara. Not now, when the time was right. He was learning that she responded to the right timing better than to urgency, which was not a common quality and which he was trying to honor correctly. Joon appeared at the kitchen doorway. Done. She won the plate argument. How? The chairman asked. She was right, Joon said simply, so I agreed. Amara appeared behind him with a dish towel, which she was folding with the efficiency of someone who had been folding dish towels since they were old enough to stand at a counter. The chairman looked at her. She looked back at him. In the space between them, something that had been approaching for weeks arrived quietly and without announcement. Not a declaration, not a moment. Just the recognition, clear, mutual, unhurried, that whatever this was had already become what it was going to be. Neither of them said anything about it. Neither of them needed to. Same time next Sunday? Joon asked, to both of them, looking between them with those patient eyes. Amara looked at the chairman. The chairman looked at Amara. Yes, she said. Yes, he said. Joon nodded, picked up his school bag from the floor by the door he had brought it, even though it was Sunday, because he was Joon, and put on his shoes. I'll be at the car, he said, and let himself out. The door closed. They were alone for the first time all morning. The chairman stood, picked up his coat. Thank you, he said. For what? She asked. He looked at her. At the small apartment, the photograph, the bookshelf, the table where bills had been crossed off and homework had been done, and a boy had eaten 2 bowls of his own porridge. For this, he said, simply. She nodded once. He moved to the door, stopped. Amara. Yes, I'm not going anywhere. She looked at him. Let it land, Then, I know. He left. She stood in her apartment in the Sunday morning quiet, the kitchen slightly disordered, the table cleared, the dish towel folded on the counter. She picked up her phone, opened her mother's contact, video call. Her mother answered on the second ring, face filling the screen mid-yawn because it was early in Lagos and she had clearly been asleep. Amara, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong, Amara said. Her mother looked at her face, at the particular expression on it. Then why are you calling at this hour? Amara thought about how to answer. Then she said, I have something to tell you. It's not bad, it's just a lot. Her mother adjusted herself against her pillow. Her eyes were fully awake now. Tell me everything, she said. And Amara sat back down at her table, the table where this had all begun, in a way, with bills spread across it and a knock she hadn't expected, and she told her mother everything. The worn-out slippers, the shoe store aisle, the counting, the knock on the door, the boy at the table, the man who listened with the quality of attention she had never encountered before, the lunch with his mother, the morning at her office door, the Sunday kitchen with the slightly burnt porridge. Her mother did not interrupt. This was unusual. Her mother almost always interrupted. When Amara finished, there was a silence on the Lagos end. Then her mother said, in the voice she used when something was both wonderful and terrifying, Amara. I know, Amara said. This man. I know. And the boy? I know, Mama. Another silence. Then her mother exhaled. The shoes, she said. That started with the shoes. Yes. You and your shoes, her mother said, in a tone that was somewhere between exasperation and profound love. You have been buying shoes for people since you were 7 years old. Amara looked at the window. At the Sunday morning outside. He needed them, she said. Her mother was quiet for a moment. Then she laughed. The real laugh. The full-faced one from the photograph on the wall. Come home soon, she said. Bring them. Amara smiled. It's not. I know what it is, her mother said firmly. I'm your mother. Bring them. Amara looked at the photograph on the wall. The frozen laugh. The open face. The woman who had raised her to count carefully and give anyway. Yes, Mama, she said. They talked for another hour. About everything. About nothing. About the ordinary substance of two people who love each other and have learned to let the phone carry what distance prevents. When it ended, Amara set her phone down on the table. The Sunday morning was almost afternoon now. Seoul was doing what it did, continuing, indifferent, electric, beautiful in its ordinary way. She sat in it for a while, a woman who had bought a stranger's child's shoes on payday, who had gone home and paid her rent, who had not changed a single thing about how she moved through the world, except that the world, it turned out, had been watching. And what it had seen, a woman kneeling on a shoe store floor in Hongdae on a Saturday morning, adjusting a strap twice, making sure the fit was right, had changed something in it that did not change back. She picked up her pen, opened her notebook to a fresh page. At the top, she wrote a title she had been thinking about for 3 weeks. Things that cost what they cost. She looked at it for a moment. Then she started writing.